Hello, world. Welcome to the 279th climate change emergency protest here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. I'm in my car because I have the puppy with me, Moxie. She is 14 weeks old. So she's helping out with Luna, who's our other dog, who's years old. And she's taking the edge off of things, but you can't leave her alone in the house, if I do a talk. So I'm out here at a local gas station, which tore down a whole forest of trees recently to put up this gas station. And my point is that as convenient as it is to everyone, it is super wrong because you are destroying the forests, and it's a ecocidal criminal activity to do things like this by establishing gas stations. Yeah, people want to make money and make it convenient, but at some point we have to stop this, which was about 20 years ago, building new things. So right now, as I said, this is number 279, climate change emergency protest. It is March 28th, 2024. Carbon dioxide is its highest in, geez, 125,000 years or whatever. It's at 420, or no, that's wrong. It's the highest in over 3 million years. So it's going way back 3 million, 6 million, 12 million, depends who you look at. So the carbon dioxide is at 424 parts per million to 427 parts per million. And there's a lag effect between carbon dioxide and heat catching up. So we used to be at 280 parts per million back in the Revolutionary War times in the 1700s. So now we're at 424. So there's a lot of heat coming, and it's in the pipeline, and we're in big trouble as far as the planet goes and survival. And yes, things survive at higher heat if it changes over tens of thousands of years or millions of years. But this is all happening within years or decades, and it's so quick, so fast that plants and animals and humans cannot adapt quick enough to the situation that's happening. And we have over 8 billion people on the earth, so that's going to be an issue as well when it comes down to food. So right now, the Earth energy imbalance, the EEI, is out of whack because there's much more heat staying in the atmosphere and on the planet than there is escaping back out into Earth, back into space. So you end up with a gain in heat, which is what's going on right now. You get more greenhouse gases, which not only carbon dioxide, but nitrous oxide, methane, and also water vapor. You have an increase. It's a feedback loop that the more heat you get, the more water vapor goes in the atmosphere, which tends to do more greenhouse trapping effect of the heat going back into space. So it's called the EEI, Earth Energy Imbalance. Right now, Greenland and Antarctica are in severe melt. Greenland is losing not only height, but also losing the edges of the glaciers there. And it's melting at a rate of, I think, is 5,286 Empire State Buildings per day in weight going into the ocean and leaving Greenland. Antarctica, the melt going on right now is they have the Thwaites Glacier, which is 4% of all sea level increase in the world right now. So there's other glaciers involved, Pine Island glaciers in West Antarctica, but the Thwaites one is the mother of all right now. And with the lack of sea ice, there's not much holding back the Thwaites Glacier from starting to slide into the ocean and melt. Right now, the permafrost is melting, thawing rather. Permafrost thaws because it's on land and it's not a glacier. It thaws and it has extreme amounts of methane in it in the northern Arctic region, Siberia, Alaska, Canada, things like that, Scandinavia, but also around the world. My guess is Antarctica has a severe amount of permafrost that no one has explored yet. Methane hydrates in the oceans also as the oceans warm up. The cages, so-called cages, encased ice around the methane will eventually melt, and that'll allow the methane to escape into the atmosphere as well in the shallow seas of the Arctic Ocean. Right now, the oceans are becoming hypoxic, meaning they're lacking oxygen or losing oxygen, especially on the west coast in the Pacific of around North America. They're becoming more acidic. They're 25% more acidic than they were during the 1700s. Heating right now, there's 11 to 14 Hiroshima bombs per second of heat going into the oceans. The oceans absorb 90% of all the heat that's being generated through carbon dioxide trapping, greenhouse trapping, and it goes into the oceans right now at 90%, 93%. But my guess is it'll start dropping because, or it will vent the heat back off because it can no longer hold as much heat as it was able to at one point because it was colder back then. Now it's much warmer. Also, when the oceans heat up, they have inability to hold chemicals such as carbon dioxide and oxygen in the oceans as well. So the oxygen does not does not hold oxygen as well as it did. That thus it's becoming more hypoxic. But also the chemicals such as carbon dioxide that was being absorbed in the ocean now, I think will be starting to vent off in the atmosphere, which is another feedback loop. The more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, the more heat, the less carbon dioxide in the ocean. It's a big cycle that goes on like that, and it's the wrong way. We're headed the wrong way on many things. We're the slowing AMOC, Atlantic Meridional overturning circulation, which to ordinary people doesn't sound all that big or that big of an issue, but it is because that transports heat up to the north, up into the Arctic region, and it's a circulation around the whole globe. You have this SMOC and the AMOC, the southern Meridional overturning circulation, but the AMOC, the Atlantic one, is slowing down. And what you're seeing now, and people aren't talking about it or don't know about it, that the reason why the Arctic right now is its 14th lowest position since they've been measuring it is at 14th lowest instead of first or second or third because the oceans are so hot. My theory is the AMOC is slowing down to the point that the heat is no longer being transported the way it was up into the Arctic region, and therefore the ice is not melting as quickly as what it did around the North Pole as spring and summer come along. And this is a result of that. It's kind of like the day after tomorrow, except not on an extreme scale that they had in the movie. So the fact that the heat's not being transported up into the Arctic will cause a massive problem that we don't know what the effects are of that. The models aren't holding true, and the thought processes of the scientists and people involved with climate change are no longer going to hold true because that changes the whole ball game. The heat no longer gets transported. The heat stays in the tropic regions and around here in the mid-Atlantic area and off the coast of the United States and down in the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico. No longer gets transported out with the Gulf Stream to such an extent. So what are the effects of that? Well, you get a really runaway heating of the ocean, and then you could easily end up with where the two systems eventually meet. But right now in the Caribbean and everything, you could end up with these giant, massive hurricanes that are Category 5, normal to be, and as well as the unheard of Category 6 hurricane, which has not happened yet. I talked about it. Antarctica, 4% of the sea level rises from Thwaites Glacier. It's the lowest sea ice level in ever. I mean, they're talking like 700 billion years chance of that happening since it's 7 standard deviations. I don't know where they come up with that number. That's horse hockey. So the Thwaites Glacier has nothing holding it back if the sea ice isn't there. So it's a very dangerous situation. The media right now does not cover anything concerning climate change. They'll cover the event, but they do not cover and tell you why this is happening. I sit in front of the TV, Tony and I do, and we both talk about as to why these events are happening around the world, these natural events that are becoming unnatural because they're happening at such a rate. And the media doesn't talk about it. They don't have any semi-experts, let alone experts on. And I don't mean the man who they always trot out, who fits in with the corporate world. I'm talking about real scientists that will give you the answers to what's happening. Paul Beckwith, Peter Carter, Kevin Anderson, Guy McPherson. There's a whole slew of people that you could have on there on the news, but they're not going to. They would tell you the straight story as to what's happening. Anyone from Extinction Rebellion, uh, Just Stop Oil, places like that. They seem radical, but in reality, they're going to be looked back upon as being the calm people because things are much worse than what we know. Politicians right now, they continue the subsidies to the oil companies, even though they're making record profits and they're killing us. There's plans now by the Biden administration to allow the companies to crank out 4 times, 8 times more oil and gas with these new projects than what has ever been done before. This guy is sinister in his policies, and you think he's a climate change president, and you're being fooled severely, just like Trump and things like that. So you keep voting Trump Biden, we're dead. We are not going to survive this. And I keep saying that, and no one's listening. because they go, well, he's not Trump or he's not Biden. It's it's the end of us. All right. At some point, I'm going to sit back and just laugh at what's happening while I'm crying at the same time, because I've been telling you this for years now. We got to get off this bandwagon. You think you're going to change things by voting the two same parties, but it's a game they play. They play one off the other, good cop, bad cop, and they want you to be angry at the other side so they can raise more money. They deliberately don't pass laws that keep a thing in a political game, such as immigration here in the United States or abortion, things like that. They deliberately leave that hanging out there so they can get more votes, raise more money, and keep the system going. And you think things are going to change, and they don't. They never will with these two parties in charge. I keep telling you, get out of the two parties. None of our friends or family have said, well, I've gotten out of the parties, and this is sinister as to what's happening, what these two knuckleheads, these two parties are doing. That you have to get out of your two parties, the Democrats and Republicans. Go to your computer right now, as I said before. This is all about your children's lives and your lives and everything. I'm not talking about grandchildren and great grandchildren. I'm talking about your life and your children's lives right now. Whoever's on the planet right now is going to suffer this extreme effects of climate change, and it won't be very long now until it really becomes bad. Right now, you have people dying around the world of climate change. So you need to go to your computer, get out of your two parties or whatever party you have where you live in your countries. Get out of the two parties, re-register either as independent, Democrat, Libertarian, or as I am, a Green Party person. And I'm all behind Jill Stein. And if you look up the party platform for Green Party, you will see that it fits right in with your thought process because you're listening to me. And if you're listening to me, the thought process for Green Party is exactly what you're all about. Okay. So you have the politicians, they keep cranking out more and more oil than ever. I don't know why, other than money, and it's kind of sick. They blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. We won't even say who did that. If you look at who's made out by the situation of it being blown up, I won't point names, but it involves 3 letters for the abbreviation of the country where I'm sitting right now. Right now, it's okay, girl. Let's see here. The population is basically uninformed, not caring, and they're in the daddy syndrome. Daddy will take care of everything. Daddy will handle it, and it's a childish outlook. And that the daddy syndrome thinks that you just vote for a person and sit back and let them do their business, and they'll do everything right by you, but they're not. They're doing horrible decisions. Biden is doing horrible decisions. Trump did horrible decisions. Obama did horrible decisions. Bush did horrible decisions. And it's not one party that's doing this. It is both parties that are engaged in this. You got a genocide going in Gaza right now. Who's in charge? The Democrats are wholeheartedly behind this genocide. The Republicans are half behind it, but essentially they are behind it. And they're going to come in and just clean out the whole area of Gaza and ship the people out. And then they'll go after the West Bank and get rid of the people there too, the Palestinians. So you got genocide going on, you got an ecocide going on, you got a whole situation happening. The ecocide is of the planet that we happen to live on altogether. So things are going horribly wrong, and they will continue to go horribly wrong, and they will go more horribly wrong unless we do something about it, and soon. But it's not going to happen the way things are going, and it's easy for you. You're like, they can't win, these other parties, but they can, because there are more people that didn't vote in the last election. 100 million people in the United States didn't vote in the last election. That's more than enough to win you an election. Even if you took half of them, that would win your election between that and the people that do vote. So keep on. We're on a ship we're on the Titanic right now. We're hitting the iceberg, and we still stay with the same 2 captains. So I'll catch you next week for number 280, and that'll be in April. See ya. Bye.